We're here for a very important reason. We're conducting a job interview. Job interview for a very important position here in Smith County. And we have some excellent candidates, fantastic candidates. I'm just sorry more than one can't win. Right now we have Chris Green and Larry Smith. I won't introduce you now. I'll wait for our moderator, our master of ceremonies, to be doing this. Unfortunately, the other two candidates were not able to join us. Previous engagements have kept them from us. All four were offered invitations. We have not made any selection because we're still interviewing. The board will meet with the candidates, and I don't know if we're going to make an endorsement or not. We want to, but it's a very high standard. We have 9 members of the board. It takes 7, not a unanimous vote, but at least 7 to get an endorsement from grassroots. That's important. But more important is that our candidates are here to present themselves to you. If you haven't met them yet, you will this evening. If you haven't before, you will have the opportunity following. I'm sure they would be more than happy to stand here, press the flash, say hello, and put a yard sign in your hands. Right? You got yard signs, right? Okay, a couple of real quick things. We're not going to do the Grassroots America pledge today. We have a lot of guests here, and we might scare people, Patty. We are excited. We're excited to learn. We're excited to educate ourselves and to be good, educated voters and citizens. This is an important year for us. Betty would shoot me if I didn't remind folks that we turn off cell phones around here. If cell phones go off, it costs $5. Yeah, I've paid that fee a few times, and mine is off. We would ask that you not, as the audience, you're being educated, but this is really about our candidates. We would ask that you not clap or yell or whistle, or nobody's going to hiss or boo, right? We have outstanding candidates here, and they deserve our undying, uninterrupted attention. We ask that you do conduct yourselves in a way that makes Smith County proud. The event is being taped. We have many questions. I won't go into that because our moderators will go over the rules. But if you would join me as we begin, we'd like to open with a pledge to both the American and the Texas flags. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And to the Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. And Patty, as I said, we will not do the cheer tonight.
Listen.
I know. All right, we have gone through. I am going to get off the stage because you didn't come to listen to me. I am going to turn it over to a retired FBI official and also, more importantly, a member of Smith County and a member of Grassroots America, We the People, Mr. Fred Thompson. Fred Thompson? I'm sorry. Congratulations, sir. I hope you get paid as much as you. Stephen Thompson. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. I think I love a captive audience. I'll tell you, I just had a few notes here, but I might find some more. Seriously, though, we are happy to have all of you here tonight, and we're happy to have the two candidates. I wish the other two could have made it, but I imagine their schedules are pretty hectic these days. So just a few of the ground rules. We've already had a coin toss, and Mr. Green won. He will have a 2-minute opening statement, and then Larry. And then at the end, to wrap it up, they will reverse the order. But Joanne Fleming had, I think, a great idea. Now, these candidates have been through a lot of debates in the last few months, but Joanne came up with the idea of having federal, city, and state law enforcement agencies in Smith County who have contact with the sheriff's office on practically a daily basis and ask them to submit questions. Now, the questions were submitted anonymously for obvious reasons, but a committee of myself and Paul Fisher, a retired DPS trooper, and another retired FBI agent, Harold Liverette, who couldn't be here tonight, we went through these questions and edited them. Some of them were duplication, some were frankly inappropriate. We wanted questions pertaining to the operation of the sheriff's office. And no one has seen them. Our moderator is Bob Bond. He spent nearly 32 years with the Tyler Police Department, and he retired as a captain. And he is going to be the moderator, and even he didn't see the questions until a few minutes ago. So each candidate will be asked the same question, obviously, to make it fair. And Bob has the discretion of asking a follow-up if he feels the need to. One other thing, this is a little housekeeping chore. Lakeview Church is nice enough to let us meet here every Friday, and for special things like this evening. There's a box back there on Betty's table. They have their expenses go on, for the heat, air conditioning, and the lights. So we would ask everybody if you could make a contribution as you leave to put it in the box there. They would appreciate it. It will help defray some of their expenses. And we would like to invite those of you who aren't members to come to our grassroots meeting. We meet every Friday at 11:30. For the rest of this month, we'll be meeting here. Then I think in May, we move to Cornerstone Church at Biloxi and Cumberland Road. No church can put up with us for 2 months in a row, so we give them a break in between. But we'd be more than happy to have you come and join us, see what we're all about. And I think without any further ado, we can turn it over to Bob Bond, our moderator, and I'd like to reemphasize what Doug said. We ask that you hold your applause to the end in the interest of saving time.
Thanks, Steve. Gentlemen, thank you for being here. I personally want to say I commend all the candidates for being willing to serve. We live in a nation where we should be thankful every day for the freedom we have to choose our leaders. So this is what this is all about. Thank you. We will go ahead and let Mr. Green do the opening, and then Larry, you can follow.
Thank you very much, y'all, and thanks for everybody for coming. I don't have to tell grassroots this, and the folks that aren't members, they know, but I'm telling y'all, like Doug said, this is an important race. It's an important race for many reasons, but a couple reasons I'll expand on. One is we've had a current administration that has been there over 3.5 decades. I personally think that's kind of insane, but he's been able to last a long time in this county. I believe that these aren't lifetime appointments, and we certainly need a fresh start with some new vision, new direction, new leadership in this county especially. And two is, my last couple of years as a game warden out in the field, more than a couple, I've noticed the people out there, especially with Obama taking office, they're scared. They're scared of what might happen. More and more talk about the revolution. More and more firearm sales increased, ammunition increased. They're scared out there. And the people in Smith County deserve a sheriff that is going to stand fast against the federal government intrusion. Obama, he doesn't like our governor. That's proven. They didn't help out with all the fires out west last summer with any emergency aid. He certainly doesn't like the state because we're a pretty red state. He's coming after our firearms if he gets reelected. That's the scary part about it, is making sure he doesn't get reelected. But if he does, we're going to have a sheriff that certainly will stand fast against federal government intrusion, especially when it comes to firearms, our Second Amendment. We cannot allow any czar from the president come down and tell our sheriffs that we need to gather up the firearms. I promise you on my watch that will not happen.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Mr. David, you got 2 minutes. Just a bit.
As Doug said earlier, I completely agree. This is a very important race. We've had the same sheriff on and off for 35 years. And this is just like y'all, when you go to the polls on May 29th, you're going to be hiring a sheriff. It's the same thing if you're hiring. The police chief at the city of Tyler is hired by the city council. The voters of Smith County is going to hire the new sheriff. And I'm not going to sit up here and give an opening about the sky is falling. I don't think the sky is falling. I think I won't go into the Second Amendment, the First Amendment, all that right now. I have a pledge that's in each one of your seats that will explain my stance on the Second Amendment, First Amendment, Fourth Amendment. But what I will also say is that there's 20 things that I really believe in, 20 things I believe in before I got in law enforcement. The first 10 are the 10 Commandments. The second 10 are the Bill of Rights. And I will defend, I've supported and defended the Constitution of the United States of America for almost 35 years. I will continue to do so. I think this whole race here is about, what the whole race is about with all 4 candidates is experience. And I believe there are varying types and levels of experience, but what I believe we need in Smith County is a wide variety of different kinds of experiences that can lead and direct the men and women of the sheriff's office we have here, where you, the citizens of Smith County, have the best sheriff's office in the state of Texas. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, for staying in your time. First question, I'll alternate the questions. First question is to you, Mr. Smith, and I'll ask the same question to Mr. Green. How do you perceive the relationship between the sheriff's office and other agencies within Smith County?
I believe there's quite a lot of room for improvement with a relationship. I believe on an officer-to-officer basis at the lower level, I think there's some level of people getting along. Everybody's got to get along. I prided myself in my 34 and a half years of building rapport with all different kinds of agencies throughout the county, throughout my area of responsibility, and one of which, when I decided to run here, was Chief Gary Swindle. I had a meeting with Chief Swindle. We had a great conversation, and I looked him in the eye and I said, we have police officers and sheriff's deputies that get along at the lower level. We have to get along. Should I be fortunate enough to be the next sheriff of Smith County, we need to get along at the higher level. We need to set the example. Me and you need to get along, started at the top instead of starting at the bottom and going up.
Mr. Green?
Well, I've been here for 16 years patrolling as a state officer. The relationships are quite dismal on the top end. I think the deputies in the field, working with Tyler PD and the officers and their investigators, I don't think there's too much of a problem there. It starts with the administration, and I have talked to both Chief Swindle and Sheriff Smith about the relationship, and they both admit there's a rub there for whatever reason. Also ARP. ARP is one that doesn't communicate at all with Smith County. Some of the constables don't get along. We've got some issues that we're going to have to resolve, and it's going to take a strong sheriff to bring these folks together. I have worked with every police chief, police municipality, constable's office, everybody in Smith County. I know this county better than anybody running. I've worked with all these folks. We've helped each other on several different calls with varying degrees of criminal activity, and we've all helped each other. They know my work record, they know my work ethic with them, and that will continue. With me as sheriff, we're going to continue to have good relationships, like I did as a state game warden, with our municipalities and public officials.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Gentlemen, I didn't mention the fact that I may ask a follow-up question, but it will be specific to the question. There won't be any new questions from me. And I also say this, you know, I'm a senior citizen, which means I could make a mistake in this process, so don't hesitate to remind me of my mistake. Okay. This question goes to Mr. Green first. What would your policy be when conducting joint investigations with other agencies?
Well, we have to, you know, as one of the first duties of a sheriff, I believe, when you come in as a new administration, is we have to go over and tweak our policy and procedure. Everybody, all 355 plus employees of that sheriff's office need to know exactly what our standards are, what our criteria is with the nucleus and the team that we're going to put together. It has to be different than it is now because there's not much consistency in policy and procedure. We as officers, whether you're going home to CID, whether you're patrolling, if you're an officer and another officer cries out for help, our policy is going to be, you're going to respond. I think we ought to. I think we have to respond when other officers are in need. I hear a lot of officers that are near the end of their shift and they hear something go down. A lot of them go on in and switch out squad cars and don't respond. We'll make sure that we continue to work with our officers, our men and women out in the field, that if they call for help, we're certainly going to respond. Our policy will be that we're going to help our other officers.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Mr. Smith?
Chief, I want to just clarify, I took it the question to be how we're going to work with another agency in an investigation.
It is.
Yes, sir.
That could include response.
Okay, all right. I've been here in Smith County for 22 years, all of those 22 years with ATF coming here from DEA and then working 11 years also in the command staff with the Sheriff's Office. Again, I've always prided myself in working closely with other local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies. I believe that's where I've got some of my great experiences I've had that made me so successful, the experience I got at the local level in the federal service. And I started off working with some great people over in Gregg County, like Glenn Elliott, Texas Ranger over there. I worked a lot with the FBI when I was over there. Every time I got an opportunity, I worked with other agencies. I worked many times with the FBI here on the John Ludig investigation, for one, a capital murder case where Mr. Ludig was killed in a carjacking deal. What you have to do when you're working with two agencies on an investigation, I believe you have to let the lead agency lead. You have to provide what services you can if you're not in the lead part of it, and just provide whatever you can, do whatever assistance you can to provide whatever they need in order to make that investigation come to a successful conclusion.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. This question is to you, Mr. Smith. What distinguishing characteristics sets you apart from the field of candidates?
I believe that the very first and foremost thing that sets me apart from all the rest of them is all of them have experiences of one type of experience of another. I've got well-rounded criminal law enforcement experience of global nature. I've worked in international venues on bombings, arsons. I've worked in 48 of the 50 states, United States, Guam and Puerto Rico also. I've had to build in short order rapport with those agencies we work with. I've gotten very good at building rapport in short order. You have to work with people. And when I was on the national international response team with ATF, we were always invited into a venue by an agency. And our level of if we were doing our job correctly or not, what we measured that with is if that agency were to be Los Angeles Police Department, Seattle Police Department, New York Police Department, or whoever, when they needed somebody with our experience again, did they invite us there the second time? And I'm proud to say we've got very many repeat invitations to assist them in their agencies.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Green?
Listen to some key words there, because we do have our differences. Globally, nationally, fires and bombs, I'm telling you folks, that has nothing to do with our problems that exist here in Smith County. Larry's got some good credentials, but they are. Everybody's read the resume that's passed out all over. Fires and bombs and retraining and fires and bombs. I'm telling you, our problems in Smith County aren't fires and bombs, and if there are, we'll certainly call the ATF to come in and investigate. Our problems are larceny thefts, burglaries, assault, family violence, all a derivative of illegal drugs. As gang wardens, we didn't come in to assist. We did our own investigations from A to Z. We came in and searched and secured scenes and developed our own reports, obtained our own statements from people. We did our investigations from A to Z. Yeah, we assisted some agencies, and the agencies that are responsible for those particular scenes will be responsible for them. But just like the sheriff's office, he mentions a lot of that experience nationally. You know, when the phone rings at the sheriff's office and you're calling them, you're not calling the ATF, you're calling the sheriff's office. They respond. The ATF does get invited to come out. If you're friends with the DPS and Texas Rangers here, you get invited out to a lot of homicide scenes. But nationally, globally, fires, bombs, that is not relevant experience to the problems that exist here in Smith County.
Thank you, Mr. Green. I have a somewhat of a follow-up question to both of you. The question talked about characteristics. So would you just take a second or two and start with Mr. Smith and comment on what are your personal characteristics that would you believe that would help you to work with other agencies and so forth?
One thing that I've always done, from the time I made supervisor in 1978, and I'd like a minute to respond to what he just said. If you could give me a minute to respond to that in a minute, I'll go ahead and answer your question now,
Yes.
but I think I need to respond to what he just said, is that building rapport, leadership ability, being willing to already walk in the footsteps of the men and women that you're wanting to lead here at the sheriff's office. There's 2 individuals running for sheriff of Smith County that have previous sheriff's office law enforcement experience, which anybody in law enforcement knows now that is quite significantly different than a lot of other law enforcement. It has the jail to deal with, contend with, civil and warrants division, and it has just many different things that a lot of things are the same, some are very much different. And I think it's very important for someone to know what their limitations are. In other words, for someone, it'd be very dangerous for us to elect a sheriff in Smith County that don't know what he don't know. But my characteristics are developing rapport in short order, and always humility plays a lot of role in it. I've never got myself in the limelight, no matter how small or how large the investigation. And the investigation of the church fire investigation, which I think that did part of that happen in Smith County, to the best of my memory, Mr. Green. But anyway, matter of fact, I think it's on 3 counties. But anyway, you got to be able to develop those rapports. You have to be humble. You can't go out here touting yourself to be something you're not. And you have to be willing to work for the citizens that own that office. Should I take office on January 1st of 2013 as Smith County Sheriff? That's not my office. That's your office. And I will run that office to the best of my ability, and I believe I've got the best ability to do that with my well-rounded, again, global experience in more than arson and explosives. I had that experience. I've worked several capital murder cases here in Smith County. Thank you.
Mr. Green, regarding your characteristics, and then you said you wanted to respond to something.
I just did.
Wow, yeah.
I thought it was sufficient. Well, you can respond if you have something to say.
Okay.
But just try to keep it within a reasonable time.
Well,
Go ahead.
first, I'm not going to have, again, build a rapport with the men and women out in the field. I already have a good rapport with them. They know my work ethic. They know my character. I don't run roughshod over anybody. I treat officers, I treat criminals fairly and equally, always have. I haven't wronged anybody. It's not my way or the highway, or better to ask forgiveness than ask permission. That's not my way. I'm pretty straightforward with folks. My character, my honesty, where my heart is. Those are the characteristics that I have. The love of this county, the willingness to want to give back to a community that's been so good to me and my family. Those are some of my characteristics.
That's good, thank you. Okay, help me out a little. Who started last?
I did.
So I told you that this was going, you all have to help me in this process.
I'm trying to digest that rebuttal.
Okay, the next question. And this involves the team that you will pick if you're elected sheriff. And so, Mr. Green, question to you is, explain very briefly how you would pick a team, what you would expect from your team.
Well, I would expect to bring in some officers in their prime that have law enforcement experience on the county level, the city level, and state level. Officers that are like-minded with the ideas that I have and the vision that I have. The lack of leadership at Smith County right now, the morale issues, the inconsistencies with discipline, many issues that face the sheriff's office, the debacle in the jail with nepotism. But I would bring in folks that, and I am going to bring in people. Of course, I hadn't offered anybody jobs. I'm not in a position to do that. But I've always said, with our administration, we're not going to come in and cut everybody's legs out from under them, 355 employees, but we are going to tweak the top administration. 3, 4, 5 people that are the leaders up there now. Some will go out through attrition. Some will have other positions within the sheriff's office, but we're bringing in our own folks. And I've had no bones about that. Just like I've said many times before in speaking engagement, I'm like a football coach coming into a new team that may not be doing so well. If I'm a head coach and I need to turn this thing around, I'm going to bring in my own coaches to turn this thing around. And that's exactly what I'm going to do.
Mr. Smith?
First of all, I'm going to use as many of the great men and women who only lack in leadership right now as I can that's currently there at the department. I'm going to utilize them first. But I'd be remiss in my duties if I was running for office or opening a business out here and I hadn't already talked to people who were great at what they do. And I'll tell you 3 people I've talked to. I've actually talked to more than 3, but I would be looking to put in key positions here. One was retired as a director of the Department of Public Safety who handled thousands of young officers and experienced officers. Another one I've talked to was a former captain of the Department of Public Safety. Another guy I've talked to is a former Texas Ranger lieutenant who would possibly run my criminal investigation division. Again, I haven't promised any jobs. I'm not in that position to do so, but I'd be remiss again in my duties if I hadn't talked to them. I feel very comfortable I could bring those individuals in. The individuals I will be bringing in who will be reteaching some of the individuals, the good men and women that already work there that only lack in leadership. We can turn them around. We get the ship turned around and head in the right direction. But my measure of how I'm going to bring those people in, those individuals, and just thank God they've got the experience I just mentioned, is when you open Webster's dictionary, you look at the word integrity and their picture will be there.
Thank you.
Can I respond?
Yes.
Again, some key words there to listen to. Retired this, retired that, retired here. I talked about bringing in folks in my prime. I don't have anything against retired guys with a lot of experience, but many of these guys have been out of law enforcement over a decade. They have missed many legislative sessions. It is important that we have a sheriff that is up to date on state law and current, as I am. I'm not taking away any of their experience and the guy. I know all of them. They're great guys. But again, the difference, we're both Republicans, but the difference is the guys I'm bringing in are mid-40s, early 50s, and there's a difference in the way and what you can do physically at a sheriff's office. And we're going to have a big challenge out there. So prime, many retired.
That was very short rebuttal.
Rebuttal, yes.
Yes. There are 2 things I'd like to say there. Is number 1, since Al Gore invented the internet, you can keep up with a lot of legislative updates on the internet. And I've kept up with them more than Mr. Green would like to realize. And also the word retired, I think Ronald Reagan, when he ran for president, I think he got in a debate with somebody where he talked about his opponent's youth and inexperience and his experience and his age. And I think that many of these retired people have very much to bring to the table to get this sheriff's office stopped, get it turned around, get it headed in the right direction with the innovation and technology that you citizens out here deserve.
Thank you. This next question, and I want you to be very as specific as you can without giving a lot of details, just so that the folks will know that you made some contribution as far as a team effort in a specific case. And I believe this question would be to you, Mr. Smith.
Contribution in a team, as a team effort in a case?
In a specific case.
Specific case? don't even know where to start.
But just very briefly,
Uh,
who you were involved with and so forth.
I guess one of the most recent ones would be the church fire investigation where 10 churches burned, some of which were in Smith County, and 3 attempted church fires where we had 175 officers, 12 to 14 different agencies working on that investigation, and I was one of 3 case agents on that investigation. And then to the John Ludig investigation, the investigation in New Harmony where the cops were killed by Newton Anderson, and both of those investigations, both the suspects have been put to death.
Okay, Mr. Green?
Let me clarify something real quick. I've talked to an individual, we talked about the New Harmony homicide a lot, and Larry mentions it, and not taking anything away from it, but there, even Bobby reiterated that he didn't even remember Larry being there, and I've talked to an individual that was the investigating officer on that homicide that never even met Larry until he started running for sheriff. Again, coming out to some of these scenes with other agencies, we don't call the ATF to homicides. Not taking away anything he's done, it's just we need some clarity there. The cases, I've worked on many cases with other agencies. A specific case, there was a fatal shooting involved a hunter in another county that I went on. We worked with the sheriff's office. They kind of punted to us because they hadn't been involved in a hunting accident before. A guy was mistaken for a deer. He was killed with a deer rifle. I worked specifically with the sheriff's office and their investigators. A boat accident fatality over in Cherokee County. I worked with the DA and their investigators over there in that investigation, criminal investigation going on, civil investigation. I've worked with many of those different agencies.
Thank you, sir.
Chief, if he's going to take a shot at me up here and pretty much call me a liar, I think I should have a chance to rebut that.
Just briefly.
Okay, all you'd have to do on the Newton Anderson case, who was put to death, is go look up, there's a change of venue to Wood County. Judge Cynthia Kemp was a judge. I testified in that case against Newton Anderson. I testified, I did an origin and cause investigation on the fire. I saw Mr. and Miss Cobb tied up with duct tape. She had been raped, and both of them had been shot with a .410 shotgun. And I testified as to the time the clock stopped on the wall that put Newton Anderson in the proximity of the residents walking down the street at that exact time. So I think I did make some contribution to that investigation, Mr. Green.
Listen, I don't want to argue, Kay. I'm just telling you, I know you did. I know you made some good contributions. I'm just telling you that we don't call the ATF. You come out there with your friends from DPS and Ranger to help investigate those crime scenes. You do it on your own. They don't call you as an ATF officer. The lead investigator on that homicide, Pat Hendricks, said that he did the homicide. He investigated it. It was his case, and he said he never saw you. And I trust what he said. I wasn't there. If you were there and testified, I hear you.
We'll have to agree to disagree on that.
Yes, let's do that. I think it's clear. It's clear enough. Now, I know you guys have had lots of questions about your training. So without going into great detail, just very briefly, this question would go, I guess, to Mr. Green first. Would be, what is your relevant training that you received that would qualify you to be the next sheriff of Smith County?
I will tell you, between the two of us, I'm the only one that has a business degree. This sheriff's office is a law enforcement entity. There's no question about it. But it's also a big business. $25 million budget, 355 plus employees that will only increase with the new jail. Probably 50 to 60 more jailers, employees, and probably another $3 or $4 million on the budget. So it's a big business. I have a college degree, a business degree. I've worked in the private sector, been the owner of a small business. I was a general contractor, worked for many developers in Dallas-Fort Worth. I did commercial finish out, commercial construction, managed many subcontractors, did budget, personnel issues. Plus I have 20 years of state law enforcement training. That is the best training that Texas has to offer as peace officers. Larry, admittedly so in the last debate, mentioned that. So I have a perfect blend of business experience, private sector experience, 20 years state law enforcement experience, and current on state law also to help manage and run the Smith County Sheriff's Office.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Smith?
You're going to start talking for me up here, I'm going to answer for you. What I agreed to in the other debate was that you had some great experience, but unfortunately, we're not looking for a game warden to be sheriff of Smith County. Could you repeat the question again? Yeah.
It's specific relevant training.
Oh, the training, yes, sir, I got
that
it.
you had that
Okay.
qualified as
It starts off from, I have a bachelor's degree as well. Mine's in criminal justice. I knew when I was in junior high I wanted to go in criminal justice. I've been in criminal justice my whole adult life. I've been to many management trainings, especially after making lieutenant of the Criminal Investigation Division and later captain of that division. I've been to management training, interview interrogation training, sex crime investigation training, burglary, homicide training, and later on in my career, I taught much of that training. I taught the Texas Homicide Symposium 2 separate occasions. I've got 8,500 hours, I believe, of T-close credits, T-close and federal credits. I've got a bachelor's degree. I've got 9 additional hours at the University of Maryland. And I've also taught other agencies all over the world in the International Law Enforcement Academy in Budapest, Hungary, Bangkok, Thailand. I've taught over 1,200 hours of other law enforcement officers. I taught all of the Texas Rangers in the state of Texas in explosive post-blast investigation and bombing homicides. So I've got extensive experience and well-rounded different kinds of training other than just one specific type of training.
Okay, thank you.
Let me comment on that real quick.
Very briefly.
Just want to clarify that I don't run for my game warden record. I'm proud to be a Texas game warden serving here in Texas, more specifically Smith County. We are state officers. We have the same training that DPS officers has. But in addition to that, we also are experts in the Parks and Wildlife Code and the Water Safety Act. We work on the border, emergency management issues. We have well-rounded law enforcement experience, I promise you.
Thank you. This is rather a long question, so in the last year or so, several Smith County jail employees have been fired and are prosecuted for various reasons, mostly for improper conduct involving jail prisoners. Does the Smith County Sheriff's Office currently conduct pre-employment background investigations on applicants for the Sheriff's Office? If not, would you consider instituting such a practice? If such investigations are being conducted, do you think they should be more in-depth? I believe the question to you first, Mr. Smith.
Yes, sir. I believe they do background investigation, but obviously not near deeply enough background investigation. Also, once you hire somebody, once you go through your process of hiring and teaching them what they're going to be doing, there's also a level of accountability. You have to hold them accountable for things, but first you have to have the policies and procedures in place. They have to know what your expectations of them are. Hold them accountable for those expectations. But right now, the bar of the sheriff's office is right here. Should I be elected sheriff on January 1st of 2013, the bar will be here. Every man and woman of that department might not make that bar immediately, but they better be striving to get up to that bar. They won't work for me long.
Mr. Green?
I certainly don't know if they do criminal background checks on their employees, but we certainly are going to. Now, I know there's a problem hiring jailers. They don't make very much money, and there's always openings. And they're going to have a hard time filling 50 or 60 more. But it starts at the top. You know, these folks in the jail see what the leadership is doing, and they follow suit. If it's okay for the leadership, then they feel like it's okay for them in the jail. We have a lot of issues in the jail. The nemesis for a sheriff. Employees that are not making very much money, that carry in narcotics, prescription meds, cell phones, having sex with inmates. It's going on because family members on the outside bribe these jailers that aren't making very much money. We've got to have integrity. I don't talk about integrity, at every debate. From the jump, from the time I got in this race, I've had integrity written on my push card. Not just in the last few debates I talk about integrity. I've had it the whole time. We have to refrain from engaging in behavior that's going to diminish our community respect or our respect from other law enforcement agencies. It starts at the top. Lead by good example.
Okay, thank you. This next question requires a short answer. Do jailers have to be certified by a state licensing agency? Mr. Green?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Smith?
96-hour course, a T-close course, which I am a certified jailer as well.
This question. It is understood that deputies have to be certified by T-close. Do they have to be recertified periodically? I believe Mr. Smith?
Yes, sir. Every 2 years, they have to have so many hours through T-close, but just because they're certified through T-close, we've many times, me as a trainer for ATF, have provided courses for those deputies. One I was talking about earlier is where I taught 2 times at the homicide symposium. And all you have to do is get T-close. Somebody's T-close can carry those T-close credits to T-close where you can get credit for them. So you don't have to just go out there to people that can do T-close classes. You can get advanced type classes for T-close, which we don't need a whole lot of basics. Basics are taught in the academy. Anytime you get out of the academy, your experience, you're going to be able to use some of what you learned in the academy, but you needed to then start going to the intermediate and advanced type classes that we use for T-close to make sure that you're better trained your people you have working for you to give a better product for the citizens of Smith County.
Okay, Mr. Green?
Let me tell you, the academy and field training are way two different things. The field training is important. We're going to certainly require our people to have the mandated T-close training. T-close is the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement Standards. That's the governing body for peace officers. We're going to have that mandated training. We're going to have a squared away lieutenant or a sergeant that's going to make sure that our people are up to date on our T-close certifications. But we're also going to allow our folks that want to go to continuing education. I did as a state peace officer. I became a firearms instructor, a law enforcement instructor, a field training officer. I had experience in accident reconstruction that only 4 in the state had. Continuing education, we're going to encourage that. Training is key out there. I consider myself a professional peace officer. A lot of these guys that go to a 6-10 week course, Kilgore, Athens, wherever, TJC, those guys have the basic training. We want those guys to eventually get their intermediate, their advanced, and master peace officer certificates so they can too be professional peace officers out there protecting our citizens and treating them the way they need to be treated.
Okay.
Thank you.
In previous debates, each of you have stated a need to have more deputies patrolling the county. Would you support an amendment to the Texas Constitution that would abolish the constable's office and transform constables and their deputies into sheriff's deputies? I believe, Mr. Green?
I would certainly look into that. I would listen to the argument, the pros and cons for it. We have 5 precincts now. I know, I think Henderson County had 6 precincts and went to 5. I would entertain that. I think was there a second part to that question?
Well,
The response times, more deputies in the field?
yeah,
Okay,
the question involved more deputies, but it also, it's sort of,
More deputies. Of course, again, from the get-go, it's on all my information, every speech I've done, every candidate forum, debate, we have to have more deputies in the field. It is key to better serving our folks. Right now, we have lieutenants that, I don't know what they do. We have to streamline a too top-heavy administration. We can take positions that way, not cost the taxpayers anything. Also with the Texas Constitution, there is, for counties over 210,000, we're allowed a county police force that is under the sheriff. Our commissioners will be aware of that pretty soon when we hit that, if not have gone over 210,000. That's what a sheriff needs to be doing. I've looked into that also. Plus, we have 6 officers dedicated to animal control. I want to get out of the animal business, not dog bites and animal cruelty, but I have worked with, here recently, the SPCA, and they want to take that over from the city and the county. We just need to find ways to help them do that.
Mr. Smith?
Okay, first of all, I've also talked to SPCA, as everybody running for sheriff has already. Thing that we got to do first, I've looked at the current roster of the sheriff's office. From day one, January 1st, 2013, I see a way without costing you, the taxpayer, one more penny or hiring one more man or woman up there, I can put 11 deputies on the streets of Smith County, these 933 square miles from day one. Right now there's 4, which is why we have the dismal response times. But I can do that by using the current roster of patrol, a sergeant, 2 sergeants on a shift that they've already got, and then you have a lieutenant. What I would also do is some of these 29 investigators that work Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, take 2 of them, put them on a shift with the patrol units. That not only complements patrol, but what it also does, those investigators that have much more experience in criminal law enforcement can teach the patrol officers how to collect the footprints, the tire tracks, the DNA evidence, and fingerprint evidence for trial. And the part about the constables, that's currently being done recently. They did that in Collin County where Sheriff Box is the sheriff there. They did away with constables there. As long as the sheriff's office has a civil and warrants division, which currently they don't have, as long as they have that, they could do the same job as constables. I wouldn't be opposed to it.
Okay. This next question really involves supervisory positions. And I believe this question goes to you first, Larry. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Rich? Again, guys, I asked you to help me. During your law enforcement career, have you ever worked in a supervisory position? If so, explain that position and how it will benefit you as sheriff.
I've worked in a supervisory position starting in about 1979 as lieutenant of the Criminal Investigation Division at the Sheriff's Office in Longview. 3 years later, promoted to captain of that division. Was captain for 4 years. We handled all of the major crimes: homicide, sex crimes, burglary, robbery, forgery, arson, explosives, and drug crimes. I had the drug unit as well. I worked with many agencies throughout East Texas and throughout Texas, sometimes out of state. What was the second part of the question, Chief?
So, how would this supervisory experience benefit you as the sheriff?
Okay, it benefited me, the sheriff. But later on, when I went to ATF, I was also the leader of the East Texas Arson and Explosives Task Force, and then later assistant team leader on the National and International Response Team. I've interacted with people, just for one instance, in Gerdek, Albania, where 28 people were killed in a bombing. I interacted with a Minister of Justice, Minister of the Interior, and Minister of Defense. I have the ability to talk to people on from the bottom level all the way up to the top. And I think you have to have that barrier removed where you know how to talk to people, you know what their job and their obligations are, and how to interact with people.
Mr. Green?
First, I don't think you have to have a title before your name to be a leader. I consider myself a leader. As a game warden for 20 years, I never had a supervisory position, and I chose that. The biggest reason is because, and I've told many of y'all this, is we had a special needs child 9 years ago. When I was eligible to promote there and until the end of my career. But with Parks and Wildlife and the limited spots that we have, 500 game wardens covering 254 counties, if we wanted to promote, it meant we had to move. Our doctors, our neurosurgeon, our cardiologist, our urologist are all in Dallas. I didn't want to leave. I chose family over supervisor to go move to El Paso or to Lubbock or to Brownfield. I didn't want to do that. I chose my family to stay here locally with our family support system and our doctors locally over promoting.
Thank you, Mr. Green. This question has to do again with training, so I'm going to try to make it, because both of you have done a great job in explaining the training that you've had, so we don't need to go back into all of that. But there are some specific training that I think the person asking the question is interested in finding out. For example, things that might be very pertinent to the job as sheriff, or as being, since the sheriff many times sets the pace for how he wants his officers trained, and of course that's delegated down. So just very briefly, what what specific training you may have had that would qualify you in this. And see, Larry, I think that's you, yeah. Chris, I'm sorry.
The specific training I haven't had is management training, dealing with personnel issues, dealing with something that's very important, especially the taxpayers and citizens of Smith County, would be dealing with vicarious liability. The liability that all of your employees have, that you're responsible for each one all the way down to the bottom. And, that can end up costing the county. Already recently, if I'm not mistaken, the Commissioner's Court just had to convene here not long ago and pay out a huge lawsuit from one of the constable's office here. I think that could have been prevented. And things like that is what you have to do in order to keep things like that from happening. You have to know when to commend your men and women that are working for you, but you also know when they need a kick in the seat of the britches. But you got to do both. You can't do just one. You have to lead by example. You have to show them when they're wrong. You have to hold them accountable. And you have to lead by example. What I mean by that, too, is you have to maintain your character and integrity, and that will rub off on everybody else.
Mr. Green?
Well, like I said before, I have a business degree. I've been the owner of a small business. I've had personnel issues. I've supervised in that capacity, not as a game warden, but it's all about knowing your personnel, the people you hire. You have to recognize their strengths. You have to recognize their weaknesses, and you utilize those strengths to help others that may have certain weaknesses. But it's recognizing the people that you have and how well they can be trained. Not everybody's trainable. We have to make sure that we put people in place that are willing to train, go for continuing education, to continue to train, to continue to better themselves. Specialized training. A sheriff needs to recognize that if you want to get in CID or crime scene, you're going to have more specialized training in investigations and crime scenes. So direct those folks that want to advance to whatever levels in the sheriff's office that are open. You have to make sure that you recognize those people that can fill that role.
Thank you, Mr. Green. All law enforcement agencies in Smith County have contact with the sheriff's office. However, most times that contact is not with the sheriff himself, but instead with his administration. And I know there's been some, the question states that all of the candidates have said they talk with various individuals about working in their staff, without naming names. Tell us about some of the individuals you have talked to and why. Now I know that you have already talked about this to some degree. So I think what the person asking the question wants to know, I guess, every deputy out there is going to represent you. The buck stops at your desk. So obviously that has to do with what kind of people you select. And so I think it's your turn, Mr. Green.
Deputies. That's the face of the sheriff's office. That's who you see. You see the deputies. So, you have to hire deputies and put deputies on the field that are like-minded, that think like you do, that adhere to the policies and procedures that as sheriff you'll enact, because they do represent the sheriff's office. Every move they make, whether it's on duty, whether it's off duty, we have to maintain that integrity. If not, we don't have credibility to testify in court. We don't have credibility with our investigators, other agencies. So yes, you have to put people on that are like-minded, because they do represent the sheriff's office out there. And treating people bad, treating people, I've watched it. I've watched deputies, because I've answered many calls with them and for them. I've watched these deputies just hand a homeowner a form after they've got their door kicked in, all their heirlooms taken, and say, hey, just file on their insurance, and they burn off and never see them again. They never hear from an investigator. Just a few follow-ups. Know how to treat your people out there. But then when your guys are patrolling out there, give them that attaboy. You know, throw them a bone every now and then. It goes a long way to people wanting to represent you when you treat them good. When you go to a squad room and say, hey man, appreciate what y'all are doing tonight. Just something, a little bit of way to go, attaboy, you're doing a good job goes a long way with field officers. They know you're behind them.
Smith?
As long as the 355 individuals working at the sheriff's office now follow policy and procedure, I don't want a bunch of Larry Smith clones out there. I want people that can think on their feet, can think for themselves. I don't want them thinking like me. When we get together and brainstorm in a major investigation, a homicide, a rash of burglaries, sexual assaults, that's the best thing we have going for us is we go around the room and we get different ideas from different people. Again, I don't want a bunch of clones of me down there. I want free-thinking, like-minded people as far as the policies and procedures go. As long as they can follow policy and procedure, I want them to be free thinkers, think on their feet, think the way they want to think, as long as they are providing what services we need. And as far as putting the people in place that I spoke of earlier, I'm going to put those individuals in place down the chain of command. And they're going to be my eyes and ears, as well as are the deputies that I'm going to gain their trust. And when the man or woman gets ready to put on that uniform and go to work for the sheriff's office of Smith County, when they're looking in the mirror and putting that uniform on, I don't want them to be sitting there, one, just hating to go to work. I want to knock all the hurdles, all the obstacles out of their way. I want to provide them the tools, the training, and the education they need to do the job for you, the citizens of Smith County.
In the previous debates, we have learned the sheriff's office has several unsolved homicides. Will you put forth efforts trying to solve any of these cases? If so, what will that effort be, Mr. Green?
We get this question a lot. There are some unsolved homicides, and they need to be solved. We will give those homicides some attention, I promise you.
Good answer.
I went through it, Chief.
Okay, that's all right. Go ahead.
Let me tell you, and we're going to hear all about Larry's experience with homicides, and that's great. I happen to feel like the sheriff himself getting inside that crime scene tape is not what a sheriff needs to be doing. My crime scene officer that checks in people coming and going in that crime scene, all we're going to do is contaminate that scene and end up in court for the next year. I will tell you that Lindsey Bradley from Mother Francis, Betsy and Al Morales from ETMC, they're not physicians, they're not surgeons, but I promise you they're hiring some of the best doctors and surgeons in the country at our hospitals here. Just because I don't have the homicide crime scene experience doesn't mean that we're not going to hire good people, get the experts in their field to work these homicides. As sheriff, we're an administrator there. We're going to be there for critical incidents to go between, we need to call the DA for, a law question, something that's controversial, we'll do so. But for a sheriff to get inside a homicide crime scene, I don't think we can do that as sheriffs. And you talk about, go ahead.
Mr. Smith?
I'm glad to hear you admit up here you don't have that experience. And I think if you don't have that experience, that you need to stay out from behind the yellow tape. But if you do have that experience, like I do, the only one of the four of us that do, I think that you need to be out there leading and directing your people. I think after 34 and a half years of working over 100 homicide cases, I know what evidence not to step on and what evidence to step on. And I assure you that I will have much more experience than the one keeping the log of who goes in and out of that crime scene. And I think if I've got that experience, I can lead by example. I've walked in the footsteps of those men and women of the Sheriff's Office of Smith County and the Criminal Investigation Division, which are working those homicides. I think that's exactly where I need to be at 2 o'clock in the morning instead of rolling back over and going to bed. I'm not saying that the Sheriff of Smith County needs to be a homicide investigator. I don't need to do the duties that gets me tied up in court. You don't have 7 homicides average a year. You're not going to be tied up in court all the time. But you need to be out there. I'm talking about anything from one of your men or women needing a drink of water to whatever. I will be out there. What tools do you need? What can I get for you? I'll be out there knocking the hurdles and the barriers out of the way to provide them the services they need to get the job done for the citizens of Smith County.
I thought I just said that I would be there in that capacity. I don't have anything else to say.
Okay. This next question, we have 3 more questions, gentlemen. We're making good time. I appreciate y'all and being responsive to the questions that we have. If elected, there will probably be a certain amount of resentment and some joy among the current employees. How do you plan to handle the resentment, Mr. Smith?
The resentment on the part of the employees currently at the sheriff's office?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to overlook the resentment. I'm going to prove my worth. I'm going to prove what I'm there for. I'm going to put everybody in the right position that I see that they need to be in. There's going to be some reassignment. I've already looking at that. Some people I think that can't properly handle the jobs they have now, but they could be well suited to do something else. I'm going to do that. I'm going to ruffle some feathers. I'm going to make the hard decisions. I'm not going in there to be the mother. I'm going in there to be the best sheriff for the citizens of Smith County have had in over 35 years. And if it takes ruffling feathers and people wearing their feelings out on their shirt sleeves, they're going to get bumped around, they're going to get bruised. But I think in the grand scheme of things, when everything is over, everything's said and done, we'll have the most efficient, effective law enforcement agency that everybody around here will look at and say, that's the way I want to conduct my business with the sheriff's office.
Mr. Green?
Well, how I'm going to handle resistance is I'm going to go in and earn the trust and respect of the employees. You know, right now there's a lot of inconsistencies, like I said, in policy and how they're administered. They see that the sheriff and administration buy brand new vehicles, and when they're running squad cars with 400,000 miles, it's a morale killer. They see a lot of jailers doing things that they shouldn't do, no discipline because they're a relative of somebody. But what you have, I don't expect all their votes, but I promise you we're going to get a lot of them because they're ready for a fresh start. They're ready for some new leadership. They're ready for some direction. They're ready for some fresh eyes looking at these cases. And they're ready for these new policies. They're ready for someone to come in and treat them with respect, knowing that they can do a good job and allowing them to do that, not micromanaging them and breathing down their necks. Give them some freedom, give them some rope to do their job. We learn by our mistakes, and we're going to make some, but we're going to learn from them. We're not going to sweep them.
Next question goes to Mr. Green. What are some of the positive images and improvements you hope the citizens will see in the SO after 1 year?
I think what they're going to see from us is rejuvenated morale. There's going to be some leadership changes. There's going to be some new faces. There's going to be reorganization, restructure. And the citizens of Smith County will know that their sheriff's office patrol has increased. We're going to do a lot more community policing. I know some of the other candidates, you know, some of their platform has morphed into mine, and I think that's good. But we're going to need more community policing out there. Our citizens are going to get to know our deputies that patrol their beat. Our response times are going to be a lot less than they are now. We're going to fly the flag out there with hopefully a good working relationship with our commissioners and with new vehicles. We're going to look good. Everybody's going to be rejuvenated. It's going to be a breath of fresh air to get out from under a 30-plus year administration.
Mr. Smith?
First of all, I'm not going to wait and measure that the first year. I'm going to make improvements, and hopefully you'll see them the first week as far as the response times go. We're going to get the response times better. We're going to work with the reinstitute a lot of basics in law enforcement as far as like crime prevention. I want the crime prevention officer to be in contact with the citizen crime groups out here. We got technology now with the smartphones and things of this nature. We could be having a rash of burglaries over in Flint and over in Sand Flat. We think they're heading over that direction. We can be in communications in real time with these smart devices of getting the information out there. We're looking for a 1972 dark blue pickup with a dented front right fender, things of that nature. Those are the things, getting back to the basics of law enforcement. Had we had years ago that technology of the smartphone and things like that, no telling what we'd been able to do. But I want people to be able to look, and number one, a measurement of that is not opening the Tyler Morning paper and seeing where you got a deputy that's passed out drunk off duty in an intersection here in Smith County. That will not be tolerated. I think you've got to set those examples. And Chris hit on it a minute ago. You have to set those examples equally for everybody. You can't have your favorites over it. It has to be equal justice for all. And you got to hold accountability. I said, talk about accountability and character and integrity. Once you lose your character or integrity from law enforcement, it can never be rehabilitated. Law enforcement, as many law enforcement officers in here know, a law enforcement officer, when he takes office for the very first time, has to agree to hold himself to a higher standard. When you have the public's trust and you violate the public's trust, you should be dealt with harshly.
Thank you. I think you guys, this last question is a short one. I think you've answered this, both of you, to some degree. But just very briefly, you might restate your answer. Do you plan to make any personnel changes immediately after taking office, Mr. Smith?
I'll make some personnel changes immediately. I'll put the command staff together, some of which will come from outside and many of which will come from inside the department, current department. There's my measurement of people who will not work for me, that I will not sign a deputation paper for from day one, is that law enforcement officer who's lost his integrity. And if they have a Giglio or Hinthorn problem, they're prohibited from testifying in court without the prosecutor saying, hey, telling the defense attorney this person has lied under oath before, he's lied, his truth and veracity is in question. I can't use somebody like that. I will not put them in another part of the department just because they lost that. If they lost that, they lost their job.
Mr. Green?
I don't have anything against the folks up there at the sheriff's office. I've worked with them for many years. I know them. I know all of them personally. You know, there's some tough decisions, but it's business. You know, it's going to be business decision. I've made no bones about it from the jump when I got in this thing September 1st, that we're going to overhaul the administration. Some of the top 4 or 5 leadership positions for a new direction and a fresh start. It's because the people want it. The personnel at the sheriff's office, they want it. They're looking for that. And yes, we're going to make some changes, but we will evaluate all employees, you know, top to bottom. We're not going to just fire everybody. We can't do that. That's not good business. But we'll have a gradual evaluation of all the employees at that sheriff's office. There are a lot there that shouldn't be there. Some with criminal records. Some have done things in front of me that I've seen that you know, I can't use those folks. And it's not that I don't have compassion for them, but it is business. It's time for a fresh start, and that's what you're going to get with our administration.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Gentlemen, that's all of the questions. We're going to close now. You each have 2 minutes. And since you started, Mr. Smith, you started, and you'll just closing statement.
Thank you. First of all, I appreciate all y'all coming to listen to us tonight. I hope you've learned some things from listening to both of us. I would also encourage you to not only, since the other two that couldn't be here, I encourage you to check the training, experience, education, leadership abilities of all 4 candidates before you make your choice. It's a very important choice, again, that you're going to make at the polls starting in early voting of May 14th and then on primary day of May 29th. Again, I believe this whole process boils down to experience. And not just one certain kind of experience, but well-rounded global law enforcement, criminal law enforcement experience. I think the best measure of any individual, whether it be in law enforcement or any business, is they're looking at their past track record, see what they've done in the past, and I think that's the best measure of what they're going to do in the future. I've got 34 and a half years in criminal law enforcement. I want to put it to work for the citizens of Smith County. It is a very big business, 355 employees, a $25.5 million budget, with 62% of that budget going to the jail. 62% of that budget going to the jail, what that equates to me as far as I'm concerned, you get more bang for your buck. You get a service where the law enforcement officers out here in the community enforcing the laws in the enforcement branch of the sheriff's office. You get nothing out of them housing your inmates. I believe we need to save money out of the jail, funnel that over to the enforcement part, improve upon that, and have the best sheriff's office here that any agency in the state of Texas or any state in the United States would be proud to work for. And I believe in order to do that, you have to have a leader that's got a vision. I think we've got 4 people running. I think we've got 3 that's looking in the side of the mountain, and I think you got 1 that can see over what's on the other side of the mountaintop because he's been there before. I've built rapport with law enforcement officers throughout the United States of America and foreign countries. I still keep in contact with many of these people. That's where you get your good experience from. It's where you, when you have a felon, somebody in a burglary, rash of burglary cases or a homicide case that flees to another state, it's nice for your sheriff to be able to pick up the phone, knowing somebody in that jurisdiction, and be able to make that phone call. I've seen that happen throughout my 34-and-a-half-year career, and I'm glad to have that person there to help me do it. I appreciate you showing up here tonight. I want your support. I want your vote on May 29th, and thank you very much for coming.
Mr. Green?
Thank Grassroots and the people, that have come tonight. We as candidates, we have been vetted pretty thoroughly. I've talked to other friends of mine that are running in other races for sheriff in other counties. They don't even have debates. So, hats off to the people in Smith County. They know how important this race is. Larry and I up here, I think everybody should be here, but we're here. We both want this job. This thing gets heated at times. We don't hate each other. At least I don't hate Larry. We just both want this job. We know we can do a good job. But we do have differences. There's 4 of us running, like Larry said, but we're all different. We're all Republicans, I think. So, but we're all different. And my experience has been in law enforcement right here in Texas, more specifically Smith County, and proactive law enforcement. A lot of Larry's experience has been just reacting to a crime that's already occurred. I think we need to be more proactive, more patrol. Let's stop some of these burglaries. Let's stop some of these crimes out in the county. Be proactive when we're out here patrolling these county roads. We're in troubling times. Again, we have an administration that if Obama wins re-election, we're going to have issues, and it does start with our firearms. And I know Larry didn't want to mention it, and I harp on it because it worries me that Obama is going to take our firearms. There's already been mention to inroad the Constitution with Mayor Bloomberg and his administration. Hillary Clinton is already working with the UN to reinstate our assault weapons ban. It's in the works, folks, and I harp on it because it's important to me that we respect our gun ownership and gun rights, that they aren't taken away by a federal administration. Again, my experience is business, worked in the private sector, and 20 years state law enforcement right here in Smith County. Larry's got some great experience globally and around the nation, Albania, and it's great experience, but it's not relevant to what we're doing here in 2012 with this sheriff's office. I have recently been endorsed by Sheriff Richard Mack, a constitutional sheriff. I've visited many times about various questions we've had in these debates, and I'm proud of that endorsement. The Constitutional Sheriff's Peace Officers Association, I think there's flyers in your chairs that you can look at. We both want the job, all 4 of us do. I feel like I'm the best man for this job at this time in our history because I have the experience, the blended experience of business and law enforcement to best lead this sheriff's office back to greatness. Thank you.
Mr. Green? Folks, let's put our hands together for these.